Welcome to RMM Help. In this session we provide an overview of work processing in RMM. Work processing is dealt with in the Work section from the main menu, and this presents a list of all of our work in progress, sometimes summarized or abbreviated as WIP. This is a summary list with an abbreviated list of fields, and we have a work detail list which contains all of the significant fields in work processing. When you enter a work requisition through the help desk or transfer PPMs from work planning, these jobs become work in progress and enter this list as WIP. There are separate help videos available on help desk operation and in PPM stage 5, which is the processing stage, and we suggest you view these videos together with the control file setup and work code files. All our WIP is viewable and therefore editable from the summary and detail lists, and at that point we can then go through the various work processing steps through to completion. If we want to find a job, we can simply enter a value into the find job field if we know the job number, and we can use the filter row at the top here, and we can filter using our built-in filters. The traffic light color coding which you see in this drop down list, which matches that on the work ID, are our service level agreements for completion and response, and a separate video outlines how they are utilized. To select a job from the list, we can select multiple jobs. We could use select all and then view selected jobs. But in our example today, I'm actually going to select two jobs, one which has been issued to a PDA, and when we open the job it will actually give us a warning to that effect. So here it says job number 422482 was delivered to the PDA used by that colleague on that date and will be locked for editing until it comes off the PDA. So when we go into these two jobs, which we've got down here, the one that's been delivered to the PDA, you can see that it's got grayed out fields here, so I can't edit that. As soon as our colleague has released that from the PDA, that automatically synchronizes back with the hosted solution, and the job is then available for editing again. When I scroll on to the next job, that's not been issued to a PDA and is available for editing. When we enter a job, initially you will have known from the help video on help desk call logging that when we first open this tab form, there's only the first three tabs available. Once we've saved the record and we get issued with a job number, the remainder of the tabs then they become visible. So in this instance we're looking at how we progress an existing job, so all of our tabs are available to us at this point. At the top of the job details tab we have what we could class as the header details for our job, which has got a batch number if this job had been generated from the asset register for a recall type job, a PPM job ID and a PPM reference, the date of the last PPM, we've got when it was last seen, when it's next due, that's the next PPM due, when it was first printed, when this particular job docket was first printed, when it was last printed, and our service level agreement reference. And our service level agreement is within 7 days on this job. In the asset details, we've got the asset ID and a description. We've got its location. We've got the model details, the serial number, and its category and type. Then we've got our client details, the client owner department, who reported it, and their telephone details, and we've also got the cost center. In this case, it's going to be property overheads. And then in our job details, we've got details of the actual fault. So we've just, in this case, we've got fault reported. Clearly, as we see the job and we start getting in a position where we can feed back information, then we might be updating that job detail. When we're ready to move to the next tab, I must stress how important it is to save at each tab after we've finished editing any tabbed information. Each of these tabs are dealt with ostensibly like an individual form, so it's important to save before we move on. So I'll save, we get the save GIF that spins in the middle there, and we're then ready to move on to the next tab. In this case, it's work and risk. Our recorded by details are automatically set when you log a job, and when we look in this list, all of our non-operational staff are listed at the top. So our help desk staff and administrative staff will be at the top because they're the ones that we'll be using for logging. A contractor, we can get them from a drop-down list, a workshop or a team. The work status is very important. If we receive a job from the client area, the work status will be set as client entered. When we are ready to allocate a job, whether we say allocated in-house, allocated to a contractor, in progress, whatever our job status is, it's important to have that because all of our reporting is around work status, and when we're satisfying client requests for progress on a job, then clearly the work status is very important. Then we've got our work type and regular work. Down here we've got our risk area. This is the asset risk, so this particular asset obviously has that set, and if the risk threshold was greater than this risk rating of 9 of significant, then it would have given our help desk colleague, when they were logging the call, the opportunity to set the asset risk as the work risk. If we want to add a risk, we can add it from here. We can give it the same risk rating, so we've got them both the same. Before we move to feedback, again we save the record. The feedback tab is basically split into 3 areas. Work performed at the bottom, which is straightforward. It's a text field, unlimited text. You can copy and paste text into that, and that gives us chapter and verse on what was actually done on the job. Here on the left, we've got the dates. The one that at the top here would be automatically set at the time that a call was logged, if this was a requisition job. However, that can be overwritten. You can put whatever date in. So let's say, for instance, you received a call retrospectively, then you can add the date of the call into there. And down at the bottom here, we've got a KPI performance, and these are linked to this not seen tick box. So if for whatever reason we don't see the job and it's not going to be completed, therefore we can click in not seen, and then we select one of these user definable lists for user definable reasons. So unable to gain access, no fault was found, equipment not found, and so on. The no transfer tick box, that would be used typically if we completed a job but we didn't want to archive it into history. We wanted to leave it in work in progress for a week or so, just to make sure that the job was not going to create any other issues. And when the transfer to history takes place, if it's ticked, that wouldn't go. Then we would untick it and it'll get archived to history. The editable fields here are our estimated time and estimated cost. They're automatically filled by ppm jobs, and if we have a regular work job, they can automatically be filled. And our other field here that's editable is where we've got other time. Now, other time would be things like traveling time, waiting time, having a meeting. So it's non-work related time. So we could put in there, for instance, an hour and save that record. That will then get added to our total time when we enter staff hours. So they're the editable fields. We can save our form, then we move on to staff and hours. As you can see, it says here staff not yet allocated, and in our staff designation we then choose a designation. So I'll choose one where I know that there will be multiple staff, so I'll choose a fitter, and at that point when I go to the staff record, it only gives us those two staff members with the same staff designation. And I'll choose Frederick Samuels. It tells me that he's not trained to work on this asset. Do I want to use this staff member? And I'll say yes. I'm going to allocate him as the primary staff member, and then I'm going to save the job. Now, the reason that we have this primary staff member tick box is that when the job gets issued to a PDA, clearly we could have more than one person working on a job. If the job requires two people, it might be two people with different trades. In the old paper days, we would create a job docket and potentially print it twice, and then we would give the job docket to the second staff colleague. But because these people are potentially going to work remotely and they may not be visiting the office, they still need to be allocated with the job. So we can allocate more than one staff member. So we'll choose, this time we'll choose an estates officer, and we'll choose Arnold Jackson, and he's not trained to work on this asset, but we'll say yes, and we'll save that record. So we're now in a position where both of those jobs could be issued to a PDA. We can print separate job dockets for them, and then as we come to feedback work, we can feedback work to both of them. In the hours work, when we start to feedback work, we're only going to be presented with these two staff members, and we have the option here to enter hours only. So I'll tick that for the first issue, and I'll choose Frederick Samuels for that. I won't be able to enter a value into time on. They're not able to be edited at this point, but if I tab across to our hours, I'll type in there 0100, so the supervisor is actually going to work 1 hour on this job. And now that I've saved the record, you can see that our total hours worked is 1. If I scoop back to feedback, you can see that I've now got an hour's work of 1. We previously put in other time of 1, so we're starting to accrue hours now, so we've got 2 hours that have been accumulated. And we'll now untick this box so we can put a time on and time off, and we'll now put Arnold Jackson on, and we'll put him on at 9 o'clock in the morning. Well, we'll put him on at 09:15, and he'll finish at 14:35, and that gives us 5 hours 20 of his time. We save that. We've now got 6 hours 20 that's been spent on this job by these two colleagues, and if I go back, we can see our 6 hours 20. That gives us a total labour cost of £146, and our total cost to date is £146.67. We're now ready to go to parts. We did save our staff and hours. We haven't entered anything else in here. I'll go to the parts section. This links directly with our stock control system. Whether you use the stock control system just for a listing of parts with a value to be used for job costing, or whether you use it as a full in, out and balance with stock taking, then it works in exactly the same way here. We choose a stock item. We've got only use model parts. If I tick that at the moment, it would soon find out whether or not there are any parts allocated, and as you can see, we've got 4 parts. If I hadn't got that ticked, if we had thousands of parts, they would all get presented to me in that sort of way. So we'll choose one from here. We'll choose a universal widget, and it says it's not associated with that asset model. Would I like to add it to the list? And you saw the way that that mechanism worked. I'll say no to that. And you can see that the cost of this is quite substantial. It's £225. So when I save that, it's given me automatically a unit of issue of 1. So our parts cost now is £221.05. I should mention at this stage that that doesn't reduce our stock holding by 1. What that does is it gives us the facility to be able to go to the stores department, to take our job docket with us and say, this is the job number, please allocate me the stock to it. The stock will then be issued. That will reduce the value at that point. If I go back to feedback at this stage, you can now see that our parts cost has been added and our job cost has now gone up to £367. Our final cost is other costs, and these are user definable costs which can cover anything other than labour and material. We could in fact, if we wanted to, just have a single item called total job cost and not enter any staff hours or any parts, just put a total job cost and whatever the cost might be, and that would be entered in a free format way and not calculated. But we'll use it for staff mileage, and we'll say that the staff mileage cost that we incurred was £7.50, and we save that record. Our total costs down here now are £7.50, and if I go back to feedback, you can see that that's been added. So if we made a comparison between our total cost and our estimated cost, you can see that we're double what we estimated, so we'd need to be looking at our costs on that particular job. If we go to documents, there are no documents attached. I can attach and remove documents at this stage. There is a separate help video on that, so I won't actually attach a document at this stage. We've got the concept of being able to show any testers that we use during this job, and the testers are entered into the asset register as an asset in their own right, and they have a tick box in the asset detail form to say that it's a tester, and it's only those that are ticked for that appear in this list. We'll select this earth tester and save the record at that point. So that's all our feedback, everything that's entered in our progression of that job. But during the course of the job, if we click on work at any time, what this does is it goes off and it looks at work in progress for any jobs in there for this particular asset, and it also looks at history. So we can see a full work history. We might be important for us to be able to see that this fault has occurred before, what was done to rectify it. Maybe we need to do something completely different, or maybe it's showing us that this is a piece of rogue equipment that we should be potentially looking at replacing. So that's having gone through all of those 9 tabs. When we've finished our work at any time, we can preview the job with a job docket. We can produce a cost report, which is ostensibly a breakdown of all of our costs, and they are itemized. And that is almost a mini invoice if we wanted to be able to show that to our client. So this concludes the overview of work processing in ResMan.